The Wiggly Podcast, bringing your garden to life.
Welcome to the Wiggly Podcast, number 11.
Number 11, eh?
We're supposed to review after number 10, but we're enjoying them so much. We're just carrying on.
Oh, is that right? Excellent.
Yeah, I think so.
Good.
Okay, what have we got on this week? Well, we've got some really exciting news from Farmer Phil. Now, I know that he gets excited if the tractor starts, but even so, this is big news.
Poor Phil.
Alison's coming in with Plant of the Week, which I'm really excited about, because we get to drink this week.
Do we?
We do.
Oh.
We'll have a little taster session.
Yeah.
And we've got the competition result, where we find out that crucial news, what colour was the cow?
Yes.
And who won? I've been talking to Alex at Small Business Pod, but in the meantime, you and I, Rich, are going to have a chat about what we've been up to in London with regard to designing mini gardens and also with what you've been up to in Hay.
Right.
But before that, the thing that I'm thinking about is MP3s versus podcasting, because I've been talking to people and they don't understand the difference. So I know, listener, you've probably subscribed via iTunes, but just in case you've downloaded a moment of this, the key thing with podcasting is to go and subscribe. And that way, every week you'll have our drivel coming to you over those internet airways instead of having to go back to a website and get another file. So if you haven't subscribed, go to iTunes, click on Wiggly Wigglers and subscribe. And if you can't manage that, go to Wiggly Wigglers, through to podcasts and subscribe. And that way every week you'll get news from Wiggly Wigglers.
You can obviously listen on your machine. But if you choose to...
Machine. Darling, police!
If you choose to download it onto your iPod,
yes,
you can do that as well. Can't even take it away with you.
Yeah.
If you have an MP3 player, can you download it onto MP3 players?
In some cases you can. Our podcast is available in M4A files, so that's generally iTunes, and that way you get the pictures.
Right.
But if you've got an MP3 player, you will be able to get the Wiggly Podcasts, because we'll have the older shows available for you to download onto your MP3 player.
Right.
But it's really important that you go to iTunes, because iTunes has the pickies.
Yeah.
So you can click on them, so it's much more fun. Did you know I've got these podcasts going into our 2 local hairdressers?
You told me, yeah,
cool.
Great. Yeah,
anyway,
really
we
good.
must get on with the show. So I did an interview earlier in the week with Alex from Small Biz Pod, and if you want to hear it, go to smallbizpod.co.uk, because by the time you hear this podcast, it'll be up. And he does a fantastic show for small business.
Right.
Getting on?
Okay.
Tell him about mini gardens, Rich.
Many gardens. Oh, we went down to Business in the Community. Bitsy, apparently. They're called Bitsy. When I spoke to Sarah about it the other day, she said, oh, Bitsy. I said, who are Bitsy? She said, Business in the Community. That's what we call them.
Oh.
So, because they're voluntary sector,
Lovely.
aren't they? So,
Yes.
So anyway, we went pottering down there. Great setting, wasn't it? Right by the canal.
It was a lovely setting.
Really nice. And they'd invited us down to look at designing something, kind of looking at a holistical design for the whole of their building, so bringing their building to life, in effect, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, they started off by talking about just composting.
Yep.
But you and I talked about that before we went, and I know Jim from the Bitsy had the similar concerns that if you've got compost, what are you going to do with the compost? Otherwise, it's just another form of waste. So,
That's right.
first of all, you have kitchen waste, and then you have compost, but you still haven't got anything to do with it.
Right. So our objective was to find them ways of using their compost. So if they have wormeries, then all well and good. But what we wanted to do was make sure that they had an outlet for their compost as well that they could use, constructively.
And to be fair, we've no idea if they'll take on board these ideas yet, so we mustn't get too excited.
No.
But the ideas,
they'll be excited by the ideas, won't they?
I think
We
so.
came up with some corking ideas, clonkers, to use one of your expressions. But we trotted on down to London on the train, and we had a chance to talk about the possible designs for their building. And of course, it's only really when you get down on site that you can see what's achievable.
Yeah. Well, they had, I think it was 15 bays that essentially was a narrow corridor overlooking the canal. And there was the opportunity to use in between those bays for our project.
So they have their bays and their pillars. Now, what do you do? What do you put in a concrete bay?
Well, we had to have something that was portable. We had to have something that was useful.
Yeah.
So we've come up with lots of different mini bars,
Yes.
which
that's right.
I like the idea of, because then you've got your food or your wildlife on tap.
Yeah.
So some of the ideas range from having a composting bar, which is easy for you and I to make, isn't it?
Yeah.
So a lot of worm composters with liquid feed coming off them, and also things like a cutting patch. When we went inside the office, we noticed that they got lots of cut flowers in reception,
Yeah.
but they didn't know where they'd come from.
That's
They were
right.
very interested in the possibility of growing their own.
Yeah.
So we came up with the idea of them having their own cutting patch, which was a small bar, probably about 10 foot long, where they can grow their own flowers and harvest them for the reception.
Yeah.
And incidentally, I had an email from somebody who asked me exactly the same thing. How do I go about growing my own cutting patch? Well, the first thing you must do is get The Cutting Garden by Sarah Raven. It's one of the best books for trying to grow your own flowers all year round. She gives you tons of ideas.
Right.
What was your favourite idea? Because we came up with 10 bars in all, didn't we?
We did. It's interesting. I'm not sure that I've got a favourite as such. I quite like the salad bar, though, purely because it just conjures up images of tasty, crunchy radishes and rocket that you can prune and chuck into your cheese sandwiches. You know?
Yeah, well, they were bringing in their own sarnies.
Yeah,
It
and
would
they were
be
all bought,
easy.
weren't they? They were, all kind of plastic packaging and the kind of things that busy people tend to do because
Yeah.
you leave the office and you want to go and buy some lunch, so you quickly shoot down to M&S or wherever and buy your sarnies and back to the office again. But this would give people the opportunity to be able to shoot out the office, but perhaps cut some of their own greens to put into their own sandwiches.
Yeah.
So ideal. So it'll not only will it improve the place aesthetically,
Yeah.
but also it'll give people the opportunity to be more involved in things associated with the company they're working for and to harvest the spoils of their efforts.
Yeah, and whether or not we go ahead with this actual project, I think the ideas that you and I came up with and learnt while we were there can be put into other businesses.
Yeah.
So it'd be lovely to have a web page up which explains all that
Yeah.
and the ideas and how you can link in not just producing compost, not just saving landfill, with things that you can actually do practically.
It's
So-
interesting, our little jollies, aren't they? There is a bit of a learning curve for us as well as, we're in a position where we can provide advice and support to other people. But we're fortunate enough to be able to learn things through the whole process as well.
You mean like how to change trains?
That's always useful, yeah. Yeah, then we did well, didn't we? No,
we did do well,
we
yeah.
didn't
We
get-
managed
we-
the
so it's
circle
very
line.
straightforward. Yeah, we've got the tube well and truly sussed now.
So that's London done, but on a more local level, although Hay is world renowned for its books, you were up there at the Winter Hay Festival.
That's
Now,
right, they have a
I
winter
don't know whether
weekend.
listeners have heard of the Summer Hay Festival, but certainly that gets, I think, somewhere in the region of 80,000 visitors and authors from all around the world. So what's the winter one about?
There were talks on various things, sustainable development. Monty Don was there giving a talk partly about his life, but he was doing a book review, one of his own books as well.
That's
There was
a good
there was
idea.
a nice mix.
Review your own book.
Review your own book, yeah, absolutely. I think that might be something that we might be getting
I think we
involved
might
in,
do,
quite
yeah.
possibly. Fingers crossed.
Milker, yeah,
No,
definitely Milker.
No Milker, no more Milkers.
On that note, I must say that Amy Stewart, who's written the book, the Earthworm book, will be coming on a future podcast to tell us all about it.
Great, I look
So,
forward to that.
Yeah.
It looks like a good book.
What did you do at Hay?
Well, I did 2 workshops. The first one was geared for children, little ones, probably, I don't know what those guys were, probably between 6 and 9 or something like that.
Yeah.
I took in loads of elder branches and teasel and evening primrose and bags of bark that I got off a fallen oak tree on the farm, which I think of that tree. I think it's been part
that
of the
was podcast number 1, I think.
Yeah, I seem to remember. Anyway, so I took them down there and get all the kids round, and first of all I let them have a look at the worms. So I had a look at the worms and I was telling them all the juicy facts about worms. That got them excited. And then I asked them whether or not any of them were particularly bothered by insects, whether they're frightened of creepy crawlies.
Yeah.
So of course no one ever admits to it. do
No.
they? So I had these big bags full of bark and all sorts of juicy things that were living in this bark from the tree, and emptied this huge sack of bark and dust and all sorts of rotten wood across across the table, and all the kids jumped back, and there was lots of screaming and trying to grab centipedes and woodlice and spiders and all sorts of things. And so that gave us a chance to. That was a real kind of icebreakers. So I gave them they all had jam jars each, and they could catch their little bug, and then that gave us a chance to look at what they've caught and how it exists and why it lives in that rotten wood, and to look at why and how there is a community of life in those kind of situations. So that was really fun. And then we went on to look at the teasels, look at the elder, and look at the evening primrose, and look at the parts that those plants play in a garden, but also how you can use those plants to make a refuge for other invertebrates. We cut the elder stems and we cut the teasel stems, and we made bug bottles. I asked before we went to the Hay Festival, it was part of their brochure was to say that any children that would like to come along, please bring an old plastic bottle with them. So that was great. So I bought the plastic bottle. So we had a cylinder to make the bug bottles. So we stuffed this cylinder with stems. And of course, during this process, I was explaining to the children why they're doing this. And they're asking me all sorts of stuff. And I said to them, I was talking all about solitary bees and the fact that some bees like to excavate their stems, like leafcutter bees. And some bees would prefer to use the hollow stem of a teasel, like your red mason bees, for instance. So they're really into it. And interestingly enough, when I left the building and went over to the main office, and some guy came in and said, guys, all these kids walking out talking about solitary bees and all these things. And I thought, great, well, that's brilliant. That's had a real impact. And of course, we talked about teasels and their ecological significance in providing fantastic blossoms for foraging invertebrates like butterflies and bees, and really, really good. And also their role later on when their blossoms have gone over in providing seed for foraging birds like goldfinches. So we talked about that, and of course the kids are really into it now. And then we chopped the heads off the teasels, chopped the bottoms off the teasels to make them nice and smooth, and got little peppercorns and stuck peppercorns on either side of the stem, which is now a snout, and stuck the teasel onto bark. Teasel hedgehogs.
Rock on!
Teasel hedgehogs. So the kids have got this great ornament that they could make and take home with them, plus their bug boxes, and also they had a really smart certificate that you made up.
I did make it, yeah.
How did it go? What did it say on the certificate?
It said, you've successfully wiggled your way through the Wiggly workshop in Hay. Fantastic.
So they loved it. So that went really well. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then the second session were the slightly older children. So we were making bird boxes. So
yeah.
I've never made quite so many bird boxes in such a small space of time in my life.
Quality control.
Yeah, quality. Oh, absolutely. Pip would have loved these bird boxes. I'm not entirely sure we could.
What did you make them out of? Quality oak.
Quality oak.
FFC,
yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, the best class of
it was a pallet,
and
wasn't
stuff
it?
like that. They were old. Yeah, pallet wood, and we did have some environmentally sound treated wood.
Right.
That we also used. But really, it was a question of trying to put this thing together. And also, we had some old inner tube for the hinges.
I love that idea,
that was
you got
a good
it off
idea.
fill, didn't you?
Yeah, I've got some old tractor tyres, and I lobbed the tractor tyre inner tubes into a whole group of children and said, there you go, guys, get cutting.
Yeah.
So they were in there cutting straps, and of course, it's all lovely and black and messy, and, they love it getting into a right state.
Oh,
so
God,
we made these
it's a
bird
health
boxes.
and safety nightmare.
Yeah, it was. And of course, there's always these things, because you imagine some of the wood was wet, and I foolishly gave the children a choice of whether they should have a nest box for robins or for tits, or for both.
Good idea.
But
not both.
But all for both. Because unwittingly, I gave myself more work to do in the process, because I was the only guy on a saw, because obviously you can't give kids saws, otherwise it's straight down to A&E. So, of course, they all wanted it for everything, didn't they?
Obviously.
So, of course, I had to chop the front bit of wood in half so that both bits could be fixed onto the front, but the one bit screwed on could be taken off for robins.
You must tell a listener the difference between what a robin needs and what a tit needs.
Right, well, robins prefer slightly open-fronted boxes. They don't like to be quite so enclosed.
Or teapots.
Strange things robins like to nest in.
Right.
They like to nest in. They'll nest on an old car tyre rim, won't they, if they
Or
get a chance?
teapot.
or an old tractor tyre, or in a barn, or something crazy.
What
But the
size?
unfortunate thing was, because all this wood was wet, when I was trying to drill it, the blinking wood wouldn't drill properly. So I was going round and round and round, and I was sweating, thinking, oh my God, look at the time. I'd be here all day doing this. And of course, I was putting so much pressure on the bird box, I ended up breaking the wood that I was trying to drill through.
How many bird boxes did you successfully make?
I successfully made 7 bird boxes
That's good.
in I think something like an hour. So that was some sort of going. You know, it's interesting with children. Anybody with children will know this, but if you want to do something, it's much quicker to do things without the children helping. So it adds a new dimension when you've got children helping, in inverted brackets. Yeah.
That's fantastic, Richard. We must move on.
Okay.
So we'll go on and invite in Farmer Phil.
Okie doke.
So it's come in, Farmer Phil.
How are you, Phil?
Very well, thank you, Rich. Yeah.
So what have you been up to?
Well, this weekend something happened which doesn't happen very often, and it was just particularly good because of the cow that it happened to. She's a cow who hasn't had a calf for 18 months,
Right.
and so was living on borrowed time a little bit, but she's a nice cow.
Yeah.
And on Friday night, we realised that she was actually going to oblige us by calving, so we were
Right.
keeping an eye on her. And at midnight on Friday night, I went out and realised that she was calving, and on investigating, came across a calf's head, no legs. So first problem, both front legs back.
Right.
Can't calve like that, so cured that, calved live heifer calf. Great, I thought.
Yeah.
That's a plus in itself.
Yeah.
And for some reason, sixth sense, whatever you like, had another investigation, 2 more back legs.
Right. Right.
So then managed to produce a bull calf backwards, so breech presentation, and he
Yeah.
was alive and well as well.
Great.
And so managed to tube them with a litre of colostrum each, which is critical to their
What's
health.
colostrum?
Colostrum is the mother's first milk, which has got all the antibodies in it to give them their natural immunity.
Right.
Why did you tube them? Tube them is he stuck a tube down their throat and just gave it them. Why didn't you just let them drink?
The reason for that is that with twins, it's very important that you know that the calves have had some of this colostrum within 8 hours of birth. And with twins, you might be able to tell that the mother had been sucked, but you may not be able to tell which one had sucked her. It's much better to know that they've had the colostrum, and then you've got time to sort yourself out.
Right.
So that was
Fantastic.
really good. They're very,
Yeah.
very pleased, and
Yeah,
there's
it
a
was
very
sweet.
proud mother in the yard with 2 fine, healthy calves.
Brilliant.
So it's a good job.
Yeah, that's a nice start to the weekend. Good,
What
good.
about how he calves them though? Because
Isn't it a bit messy and
he has to
bloody?
help them.
It's a bit like James Herriot, isn't it? Oh, he just,
Yeah.
you have to kind of get
He
stuck
takes
right
his
on,
shirt off,
stuck
and
in.
then he takes a big
So to
bowl of
speak.
hot water and plunges his way. No, how do you do it, Phil? Singing gently. Da, 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 da.
I'm sorry to destroy your illusion, but it is a bit of a contact sport.
Yeah.
But I use what's called a carving aid, which is rather crudely a thing like a jack. The benefit of it is that single-handed I can apply a constant tension to the calf, which is the bit that's important.
Yeah.
So particularly where you've got a malpresentation, so legs back or breech presentation, the birth canal doesn't open up properly. All the natural processes get put out of kilter. So that for me to be able, without busting a gut, to put traction on the calf, not necessarily very strong traction, but just enough to keep pulling in the right direction, the birth canal opens up and you begin to get the right processes going again. And it's very much more peaceful for the mother. She's not as hassled by it. With just one person, you can exert all the traction you need in a controlled way, and it's much safer, and I've found it to be by far the best way to do it, and particularly in cases like this where the natural processes had effectively gone wrong.
Yeah.
Without assistance, she'd have lost both calves,
Right.
so I suppose ultimately it would have killed her as well.
Yeah.
So
How
that-
often do you have to check them? Because we've got that machine in the bedroom, haven't we?
Yeah.
we use closed circuit TV so that we can watch them. Now that just means that some cows take a long time. They'll muck about and they're uncomfortable and wandering around for a number of hours before either they're actually going to calve or they need help or whatever. So it's much easier and again more peaceful for them to watch them on closed circuit TV
And it's
unobtrusively.
so much better than normal telly.
Yeah. It probably is. Yeah.
So yes, that's what that's for. But I mean, really, you get a feel for it, and if it started calving, something ought to happen within an hour or two, no more.
Right.
If it hasn't actually started calving, then you can stretch the intervals out to sort of 6 hours, something like that.
Right.
But the important thing is that it is a natural process and normally works perfectly well. You're trying to pick up the ones where there's a problem. The sooner you pick them up, the easier they are to solve. If you've got a problem that's gone too far, it gets much harder to cure.
Nice.
So, the result is 1 brown cow.
1 black and white cow, very happy. 2 grey and white calves, 1 bull, 1 heifer, in first class order, all well.
And
Great.
he took the pictures for the podcast within how many minutes?
5 minutes.
That's my boy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Phil. Competition time, Richard. It's
Great.
time
It's
to
time.
announce the answer.
The big announcement.
Yes. Now, despite there being a little difference in terms of the cow being pink in iTunes, it wasn't in fact pink.
No.
Could you, Richard, tell us what colour was South Devon cow in podcast 5?
Brown.
A brown cow.
Brown.
Only Phil could have come up with that question. A brown cow, lovely.
Yeah.
Well, the winner is Vicky Cowles. So thank you, Vicky. And she's given us lots of feedback on our podcast, things she likes, things that she thinks we can improve. And one of the things was to have more stuff for owners of tiny gardens.
Right.
So as we develop mini gardens, that will become more obvious, I think, and
Yeah,
more
that's right.
use to her. But she said she's particularly interested in bug boxes, so there's a bit in this week's podcast for her.
Yep.
And she found very interesting the bit about feeding the birds and importing wild birds. It's a bit of controversy that you brought up. She said, I thought your piece on bird flu was great, as people are really overreacting. I'll still be feeding the birds as usual. A couple of things you've highlighted that I thought were important were the imported peanuts we use to feed our birds, podcast 3, and the imported wild birds, podcast 5, particularly with the peanuts. A small change could make all the difference in terms of using locally produced feed. So thank you very much, Vicky. And I hope you enjoy your book, which is A Greener Life by Clarissa Dixon White.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. It's a fantastic book.
And now, this week, it's going to be great because we've got Alison coming in to talk about alcohol. No, to talk about
Something
plant
similar.
of the week.
Yes.
So, hello, Al.
Hello, both.
Hello,
Yeah,
Alison, all right.
she's come down
She's
to
twiddling.
earth today, Richard,
Yeah, with a
because
bump.
she's been flying all over the world. She's been off to New York, then she comes back to Wiggly Wigglers, day 1 back, and it's the forklift driving course, which I understand you played a part in, Richard.
No, I was not. Well, I did play a part, not a constructive part. Not to be said. I sort of,
Could you enlighten
came in
us?
on the theory test, Rich.
Yeah, I
I did
did.
ask if you'd like to help me, but you
what
declined.
did I say? What are you all doing?
Yeah, what are you all doing? It's total silence, and Richard pops in. What are you doing?
Why are you all so quiet? Phil, stop copying.
And so we must know, and what please are the results of the forklift test?
Well, we all passed. Amazingly so.
Really?
I think I was a bit borderline at one stage,
Right.
but, you know,
And who came top of the class?
I couldn't tell you that. It was Farmer Phil, I'm
Oh,
afraid.
typical.
Farmer Phil.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
knew
moving
everything.
on. Yes. So, Al, you brought us over to Richard because you've got hold of this.
Yeah.
Twig.
Yeah. It's just a little bit like a twig at the moment, isn't it? And again, Alison's thrust something into my hand, which I'm not entirely sure what it is, but it is a slightly bruised specimen of what exactly?
It's blackthorn, Rich. Sorry, it's the first one I got out of the
You
garden.
reversed
My head said, hurry up.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about blackthorns. Then.
Yeah, blackthorn. Well, they're quite sturdy plants. As you can see, the main thorns come off the main stem of thorn, and they are really quite sharp, beastly things. Roots are quite a rubbery root system they have, and are sometimes quite difficult to take. They don't adapt to shady sites. They don't like shady sites, but any other sites they'll do well in.
Yeah. Soil. They have any preferences over soil types?
No, not really.
Great
actually.
big long thorns, aren't they?
Yeah, they are huge, and sometimes if you get stabbed by them, they do go septic. They're quite dangerous, so you have to be careful when you plant them. But
You're not selling this one to me, Al. Not as plant
I
of
know,
the week.
No.
It's been backed over, and you go septic if you touch it.
Well, sometimes people have an
Not
allergic
going
reaction
well.
to them.
Not going well.
Yeah, no. It's a lovely plant. It grows very vigorously in a hedge. It sometimes suckers out, which causes a dense thicket. So if planted with the other species, then it becomes wonderful for insects, butterflies, birds to roost in during the
The
winter months.
perfect robin home.
Yes, the
That's
perfect
it.
boat
Yes.
rowing home. Yeah, you could definitely put your teapot in one of these
You
bushes.
could definitely put your
Yes.
teapot,
Yeah.
assuming that you could get past the thorns that would obviously
Yeah,
cause
that's
you to go
right.
septic.
That's right. But then it would keep the dreaded cat away, there, wouldn't it? Perhaps.
Be
You know.
brilliant to keep the cat away, wouldn't
Absolutely,
it?
yeah. Keep cats out of your garden. They wouldn't go through that one.
We've got a
Yeah.
wonderful picture taken by John Harding in our catalogue
We have.
of blackthorn with a blackbird, and he's got a blackthorn in his beak, and it looks as if somebody has rammed it in there because it's so big and juicy. And so, what are those berries? This is the key thing, isn't it?
Berries, that's why I like this one so much. They're used for sloe gin, to make sloe gin during the winter months.
So they are sloes then?
Sloe berries, yes.
So tell me what they look like, because are they the ones with like the sort of fog on them?
Yeah, they're black, quite large really, and sort of a cloudy appearance on them.
Yeah, you rub them, don't you?
Yeah,
And they
you have to clean them before
yeah.
you put them with the gin.
And so can we have the Alison definitive guide to making sloe gin and what we are to do with it?
Well, you need...
And when are we to make it?
Well, sloes were on the bushes probably a month ago. You might still find them, actually, because we've only had a couple of frosts. Mind you, we had that snowy weather. So, yeah, you just collect the sloes off the bushes and you prick each one with a pin to stop them exploding when they're in the gin. And would you like the recipe?
Yes, please.
Well, approximately. It's not precise or anything.
We'll live with that.
Approximately 2 pints of gin,
Oh.
a pound of sloes already pricked with a pin, and 8 ounces of sugar. And you put them in a large pot or a big bottle with quite a large top, and you just shake it every day.
We use a 3-litre orange squash bottle,
Oh, ideal.
just so that you know.
Yep. And you do it sort of October, November time. It's ready for Christmas, but usually it's better after Christmas. It's had longer to stew. And then
Okay.
you just take the sloes out, drain it and drink it, and yum.
And what occasion would you drink this on? Al?
No, you could drink it at Christmas time, or you could take it with you on trips off in your hip flask. It's a real winter warmer.
It's
Lovely.
a skiing one, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is a skiing one too.
Have you ever made it, Rich?
Yes, lots of times. Slow. It's fantastic stuff, and I love it in a hip flask, especially when you're kind of fishing or wandering about in the countryside. The interesting thing is that a sloe, whilst it makes really tasty sloe gin, when you pick one and stick it in your mouth, it
Yeah.
dries your mouth out.
Yeah.
doesn't
It's
it?
really bitter.
Yeah.
Dries your mouth out.
But it makes cheap gin fantastic.
Yeah,
Beautiful
absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Wonderful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
On that note,
Oh, we'll slope off.
well done, Richard. Shock
Yeah,
jock.
Thanks, right. Shock jock. You and your shock jock.
The Wiggly Podcast, blooming iPods.
Well, here's Monty with his Wormcast.
The Wiggly Wormcast podcast by Monty, a weekly fact on worms. Worms can eat half their own body weight every day. That means a kilo of worms can eat half a kilo of your kitchen waste every day.
Thank you, Monty. Well, Rich, we're allowed to mention Christmas.
Not long now, is it? Are you going to have a tree? Are you going to have a Christmas tree this year?
Well, I'll definitely have some form of Christmas tree. We normally prune our willows, so clip off the willow in the winter. And we
Right.
bring in a lot of crinkly willow and decorate it. And then up the
Fantastic.
staircase, we do lots of ivy and holly and bits and bobs.
Lovely.
So we'll do that. But are you having one?
Maybe. Not sure yet. Might do something like you've done, something creative. It depends. There are problems with getting rid of Christmas trees, aren't there? Once you've got the thing, and if you've cut one and put it in your lounge, then what are you going to do with it after you've finished decorating it? And
Yeah, I mean,
turfed it
apparently
out?
7 million Christmas trees are grown and sold in the UK, and most end up as landfill. Of course, you can shred it. You can use your bark as compost, because you don't want to miss out, do you?
No,
Or you could grow your own.
grow your own now. There's a good idea. So
Yeah.
you could grow your own and then just pop it back into the garden.
Got to be a bit careful because it has to acclimatise when you put it back out, because it'll be really warm in the house and then cold outside. So a little bit of steady care, but perfectly able to do that. And then
Right.
you can keep bringing it in year after year
Excellent.
until it gets
excellent.
such a giant thing that you have to actually knock your house down to let it in. Right, we're podded.
Great.
Pod.
See ya.
Pod.